Brandy hired. Dr. Spock hired. Larry has the nut house patients running the asylum, as he also hires 2 certified doctors from Cora International as the new staff at Fresh Meadows. Carl Weber has done it again, you guys. He's got like elements of Friday the 13th woven right within this episode. And he's even brought in some heavy hitters like Thelma from Good Times to help tell this story. Now, this is my breakdown of Carl Weber's The Family Business, Season 4, Episode number 1, titled Crazy as Duncans. The scene opens with all the members of the table at LC's, and they're all there waiting on their monthly dividend payout from their new acquisition with Cora International. LC tells the crew that their new ownership is vastly profitable. Like all those tax and tariff issues, they've been resolved. And of course, Senior Cruz is the first to speak up to say how grateful he is to LC for helping them to launder all that dope money through their company. And although he's grateful to LC, he still wants to get back at Alexander Cora for killing his son. And Sebastian echoes his sentiments too, as they're also responsible for the demise of Baby and Doll. And LC told him, y'all gotta pump your brakes on that, because Alexander Cora is a public figure. Like, he's the owner of a billion-dollar corporation. We can't just go knock him off. It'll bring too much heat to the new owners of the company. So since they can't just knock him off, Sebastian suggested an accidental death, right? But then Orlando chimed in and said, well, you can't handle that either, because Sasha knows that Sun and Moon, those are his new Baby and Doll, planted a faulty car bomb in his car last month. So that held up the table progressing anywhere from 6 months to a year. So he can't do that either. Then Sebastian had the nerve to say that the Duncans don't have the balls to get their hands dirty. So Orlando said, he stood up and said, look, meet me outside and I'm going to show you what kind of balls we got. That was too funny, like pulling a kid back from a schoolyard fight. He had to sit Orlando down, or he was going to take care of Sebastian right then and there. Orlando had to remind them that they had to be careful and calculated and patient with their moves, because he and Senior Cruz have grown old in the business for a reason, and they have to do things at the right time. But he told Senior Cruz, look, I'm going to deliver Alexander Cora to you right to your doorstep personally. So then in our next scene, we move on to Harris and London and their kids. And Harris is experiencing fatherhood firsthand. He don't want to be there. He don't want to be bothered. He wants to drop the kids off early with Chippy. And of course, London said no. London up in the hotel room getting her cheeks clapped. She getting her cheeks clapped by the bachelorette party entertainer. So she was like, hell to the no. She was like, you got to deal with them for the next 9 hours and then you can drop them off at my office. Because we know, needless to say, London is a boss now. She's the queen of weed. So she's a real boss now, making boss moves. She's even hired this entertainer to entertain her every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. And she's paying him to keep her feelings out of it. She wants to make sure that it's a business deal and business only. So after their meeting, Elsie wanted to make sure that Orlando was going to come by to say his farewells to Curtis. And of course, we know O ain't going. He don't want to go. I mean, after all, he's the one who actually smashed Curtis's girl. So I don't know why he's so mad. But anyway, he ain't going to that dinner. He lets him know that Senior Cruz and Juan are going to meet him at the Hellfire Club for their reopening. But he said that he wishes Curtis all the best. And Elsie said, well, I don't see why you're not, wanting to participate. And he was like, well, I don't see you running up to Fresh Meadows either to make things right with Uncle Larry. And Orlando does have a point, but I think that he should take this as a teachable moment from his father to not have those type of family relationships, right? Because of the way that everything is transpired between he and his brother. So he's trying to teach him, look, son, reach out to your cousin, have a relationship with him. So like whatever has gone on, squash it, because we're family. But Orlando don't want to hear it, but he wished him well. So speaking of Larry in the hospital, listen, Larry is not only a patient, he's now their new director. Tell me how that happened. I have no clue, but he's the new director now. And he's hiring all the doctors who worked at Cora International, Brandy and Dr. Spock here. Like, I just call him Dr. Spock because that's what he reminded me of back in season 1. So while he's interviewing the good old doc here, the clerk at the front gave him a phone call to let him know that Dr. David Franklin's wife and 2 police officers are at the front. And Dr. David Franklin used to be the old director, but of course they got rid of him because he was going to the state board to have the asylum shut down. And of course he wanted to have it shut down because of all the shenanigans that were going on. So Larry tried had to quickly continue with their interview. And he found out that there was some type of gap in the doctor's employment. And he said, well, you were at NASA Medical Center. And Larry was impressed with this because he's been there as well. I don't know if, in what capacity, but the doctor said, yes, I was there, but I was not there as an employee. I was there as a patient. I had a mental breakdown. But Larry said, don't worry about that. I believe in giving people second chances. I'll give you a second chance as long as you're going to be loyal to the shenanigans that are going on up in here. Dr. Spock said, yeah, I'll do it. Larry said, great, I'll see you at 8 o'clock in the morning. And just like that, he's hired. So after the interview, Larry went out to talk to Mrs. Franklin and the police. Now, the police and Mrs. Franklin thinks that they've done something to her husband and now taking over the hospital. But police records and hospital records show that Mr. Franklin was being very inappropriate with some of the patients there. Hence, he was fired. So they don't know what happened to him. According to them, he just got fired, he got upset, and now he's missing. Been missing for 2 years. But the detectives, well, I would say Mrs. Franklin, because I don't even think that they believe it, because the police reports support everything that Larry's saying here. But Mrs. Franklin says that her husband was on his way to the state board to report the hospital for all of everything that we see that's going on. He went to report it and then he never came back home. So we've got two very different stories brewing here. And of course, Larry's a Duncan. So he's going to have more than a couple of people on payroll at the police station because he told the clerk to make sure that Detective Montague knew that they were on their way to talk to him. So yeah, the Duncans got that clout. If you have the police department on payroll like that, I mean, come on. What more could you ask for, right? So now everybody's in the kitchen at Curtis's goodbye preparation, right? And he's talking about all the women who's going to be crying when he leaves town. He's going to be going back home. And I think home is Georgia, but I'm not quite sure. But anyway, they're all in the kitchen and they're all talking about how Curtis's women like their chicken and rice. Okay. And Aunt Chippy wants him to stay. She doesn't want him to go. She's even gotten LC to offer him a bail bondsman company, the largest one in New York. Right. So she wants him to stay. And she said, well, why aren't you going to take LC up on his offer? Which means that she's talked LC into giving this guy his own business, successful business, the largest one in New York. Like, really? So anyway, he turned it down. He said he wants to be his own man. He wants to build his company his way from the ground up. He doesn't want any handouts. And at this point, they had to respect that, right? He talked about being country raised and how much he missed his mom. And his mom is Nene. Aunt Nene. Yeah, Thelma from Good Time. That Thelma. I said Thelma. But in our next scene, we see LC and we see Junior. And Junior is telling him that he wants to be more than Duncan's security. He wants a little bit more responsibility. And he wants to take his Uncle Lou's old job. He said he was married now. He's taking on more responsibility. So he needed a little bit more out of that Duncan bag. So he told Junior that he doesn't see him taking over Uncle Lou's old job, but what he could do was put him in charge of the Italians. And through Junior's excitement, he was happy about that. And he was like, I'm going to have fun, being over the Italians. But Elsie had to tell him, wait a minute, hold on. You don't handle Italians. That's what you don't do, right? Mistake number one. He had to warn Junior and let him know that Uncle Lou, it took him a long time to mend a lot of relations that he had in that community, especially with Sal Dash, right? I mean, do y'all remember him? He turned out to be Harris's dad, right? So then LC wanted Harris to prove his loyalty to the Duncan family by killing his dad, Sal Dash, because things had went sour between he and Uncle Lou. Anyway, he told him now he's going to have to deal with Don Frederico. Then LC warned him, he's no Sal Dash. He's kind of old school. But then Junior said, well, it doesn't really matter because I know to earn his respect. Just like he was taught. His dad also told him that dealing with the Italians, they like to go to hellfire a lot, right? So he wanted to make sure that Sonia was not going to have a problem with that. So then Junior said, she's like Ma. She's ride or die. So he's basically letting his dad know that Sonia's not going to have a problem with him being at Hellfire a lot with the Italians. Because, of course, Hellfire is everybody's number one favorite spot as far as brothels are concerned. Okay. And here we have Sonia's name coming up yet again within this family. Of course, the first time that it came up, it was about her being married to Brother X, right? That was the first hiccup. Then she withheld Harris's secret of him being a dad with someone else. and not saying a word to London about it. So here we are with this character being brought up once again. And like I said, for the reviews that I had at the end of season 3, I really believe that her role is going to change just so that family business can start taking the plot lines into a whole different direction, right? They've already gotten the patient over there with his brother running the place, in which brother X is now a patient there as well. We have the table of CEOs here, and it seems that they're at odds a lot lately, right? Especially with what Chippy did to Bernie. Wow, they've got a lot going on this season. So I think that her character is very instrumental this season because she seems to be coming up a lot lately. I can feel it in my spirit. So in between Junior going home to his lovely wife, Sonia, we saw Rio here. He's being challenged with the task of hiring a bottle girl. But the problem is, he doesn't need any more bottle girls. I think that his cousin Curtis sent her over because he sent girls there before and they've gotten hired. So he sent her over, I think her name is Keisha, and he told her, look, I don't need any more bar girls, but I do need a bartender. So we all assumed that she couldn't fix a drink. So he took her behind the bar and he told her to make him a white Russian. So at first, again, we're still hesitant. She doesn't know what she's doing, but she killed it. Oh, she landed it and landed it very well because he was pleased with her delivery, her speed, and everything about the white Russian. So she delivered that on time for him. And I really like this too because I've always wanted to be a bartender. Always wanted to be a bartender, never pursued it, but it's like a cool job, right? Don't you think? So Junior finally makes it home to his Sonia, right? And it turns out that Sonia is the one who actually put him up to asking for a promotion, right? And I'm sure that Junior does want this promotion, right? But I know that Sonia put him up to it, right? Because he didn't even want to talk to his dad about promoting him. But since he's being forced to do it, he thought about what his Uncle Lou would say when negotiating with LC. He told him he's got to aim high so that LC would come down and land exactly where he wanted him to. So this means that they can't take off and go down south like they had planned. And this is exactly what she was banking on. He asked her, he said, are you going to have a problem with staying here in New York a little bit longer? And she goes, well, as long as I can stop taking that little white pill. She's talking about the birth control pill. So it looks like this is some sort of negotiation of some sort because Junior is saying, we're going to have to stay here. And she goes, well, if I can stop, if we can make a baby, I'll stay. If not, we need to go down south. And she actually put him up to all of this in the first place. So I guess she just threw a whole lot of what she wanted in a hat and said, okay, it doesn't matter which one he picks because I want to do all 3 of them. I don't know what's up with Sonia, but something just ain't right. Okay, guys, another super important piece in this season is going to be this Fresh Meadows place, right? The spot where they hold all the mentally ill patients, who's being ran by a mentally ill patient, and all the supervisors are mentally ill. So we see here, he's never going to run out of material, never going to run out of storylines on this one. This is genius. Carl Weber opened the door to a whole new series of what could very well be some spin-offs. And you can never stop with these storylines because lots of people have lots of stories to tell and we can't wait to see them. And this is definitely a great strategy to place all of this right at the beginning of season 4 so that we'll know exactly what to expect. So Larry hired yet another Cora Lab employee. It's Brandy, and he thinks that she's overqualified for any positions there at Fresh Meadows. But she told him that she doesn't want to be in the lab anymore. She doesn't want to deal with, all the chemicals and creating drugs. She wants to actually be more on the forefront and help people, like for real. And it's too early to tell if she's telling the truth or not. Whatever her motives were, Larry didn't care. All he wanted was 2 board-certified doctors on his staff just so that he could pass this state inspection that's coming up. So it's official. It's now official. We have inmates at Fresh Meadows in management and directorship roles and responsibilities with 2 crooked doctors to boot. So again, this is just excellent. Excellent casting, excellent storyline. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with this one. So we move back to London and Harris, and I guess it's 9 hours later because he was supposed to drop them off at her office 9 hours after she got off the phone with him. So in him dropping them off, we found out that Auntie Raven bought Mariah a watch. So after London excused the kids, she told Harris that he is to not have her children around his WHORE. Then she told him, if we ever have this problem again, I'm going to make sure that C-Note and DJ will be their goon nannies every time you pick them up. She said that he's going to have a chaperone if she's around those kids again. So she made herself perfectly clear. So we're at Curtis's farewell dinner and everybody's saying their goodbyes and Brother Minister is there. Why? For what? I guess he's a part of the family too. No, he's there. He feels that Curtis was, of course, very instrumental in the obtaining of Brother X. So he wanted to be there to see him off too. Now we've made it to Club Hellfire. And there's a new girl from Haiti, according to the waitress, who is an exotic treat for Orlando. And Wanda's sitting over there like, man, look, what's going on? And Orlando was like, look, I got the text message to be here just like you did. So don't ask me. But Senior Cruz over here on the other hand, oh, he is ready. He ain't complaining nowhere. He's good. So the waitress told them that the new owner has looked into the database and she's created a whole new list of preferences. I mean, well, it's the same preferences. So anyway, she knows what everybody likes, what they don't like, their fetishes and everything. So she's setting the room up quite nicely for them to go ahead and pull out those cards. So at this point, everybody's waiting. They're waiting to see the new owner because we all know that Kim came to her demise last season after overdosing on heat, or was it fire? So they introduced her as Madam C, and we all know her as Consuela. Right? And she guarantees that everybody's going to have a happy ending. And the men, of course, everybody's sitting there in shock because nobody's even thinking about her at all. But here we are. So as I stated before, Nene here is played by Bernadette Stannis from Good Times. Remember Thelma? This is her. So where's she been? She hasn't been in hiding because I've seen other footage of her and pictures and stuff. So she hasn't been hiding, but I'm very happy that she joined the cast. I love, love, love Good Times. I mean, who doesn't? Okay, so this next scene, I can't quite put my finger on it. The only thing that I could see that's going on here plot wise is we have to build some type of bond between Rio and Keisha because she was saying goodnight. She was wrapping things up for the night and then her Uber canceled on her, right? So then this guy walks up to her and I thought initially that it was Brother X, of course, who, I don't know, escaped the asylum somehow. And he attempted to rob her and he didn't get away with it. Rio kind of stepped up. He came out and then he pointed a gun to his head. He said, look, I got on a $30,000 suit, bro. Like, act like you got some sense. And I like this because it lets us know that Rio ain't soft by any means. Like, he can get his hands dirty and he don't mind getting his hands dirty. Ever since I started watching this show, since season 1, when Paris was with him, he's always ride or die, like they all are. Okay, this is our next big establishing what's going to be happening through this insane asylum. All compliments of Brother Larry here. They all rode over to Mrs. Franklin's house and the clerk went inside. She helped Mrs. Franklin meet Mr. Franklin yet again in those heavenly skies. And this is that Friday the 13th piece I was talking about. This is clearly some Jason-ish, without a doubt. But Raggedy Ann here, red hair, Raggedy Ann, they took her over there to make sure that Mrs. Franklin would not be talking to the police ever again. Larry had Dennis to kill all the laborers to make it look like a serial killer. So they just They just over there killing up folks. This is nuts. Well, the first episode of season 4, you guys, has rolled out quite nicely. And that helps to build a solid foundation for the rest of the episodes. They only gave us 2 episodes. So I'll be reviewing the second one a little bit later. But I do hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you did, give it a thumbs up. You know I'd appreciate it. And if you're a fan of the family business and you could not wait until season 4 began, go ahead and sub to the channel because I'll be doing a lot of videos on this show. I absolutely love this show, right? And I hope that you do too. So stay tuned for the rest. And thank you so much for tuning in to Ruthless TV. And I'll see you on the next one.